And now for our feature presentation.
You're listening to the JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online.
He's going to go into the end zone.
Puts it up. Yes! There goes Davis.
Oh, my God.
Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
American Fool is finally the one. American Fool has won the Triple Crown.
And Barnes hits one high. It's a deep. It is out of here. Fly ball into right field. She is gone.
Unbelievable! A home run for Gibson, and the Tigers have won the game 5-4. I don't believe what I just saw.
Here are your hosts, Jamie Bradford and Darren Goldwater.
All right, greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online. Here in the Low Country, Darren Goldwater, Jamie Bradford. We're here until 2 o'clock this afternoon. You can find us now everywhere, it seems. I'm going to try to go over all of this. So if you are listening on the Podbean app, we certainly appreciate that. But there are now other ways to find our program, thanks to engineer and co-host Darren Goldwater. We are on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is officially up just by typing in JB and Goldwater on YouTube. Also, Facebook Live. That is available on our Facebook page by typing in JB and Goldwater. Also, of course, on Twitter at JB_Goldwater, and on Facebook and Instagram, JB and Goldwater. I am at JBradfordSC. He is at Darren Goldwater. And if that's not enough, I don't know what else will be. Good afternoon, man.
Good afternoon. I hope this all works. There's been a lot of testing that's gone into this. I haven't yet incorporated the new phone number, but I think that it works. It should. I've tested it in other ways, so it should work. And with luck, the video streaming is smooth because now there's a lot more going on with the computer.
Okay.
But it should be.
We should be okay.
It should be okay, yes.
843-321-8893 is our phone number to be a part of our conversation this afternoon. 843-321-8893. You can store that in your phone and, like, we're your friends, and just pick up the phone and call us if you have a question, comment, concern, or whatever the case may be.
You can text that number as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's also the text line.
It is.
There you go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, see, I've done plenty of production in my time over the last 6 or so years that I've been in radio, but the engineering type stuff, I don't know much about it.
Well, I guess it looks like it's working. My wife thinks we're handsome, so that means the video is up, which is good.
Good deal. Good deal. There you go.
All right.
Call, text 843-321-8893, our phone number, and again on Twitter at JBradfordSC, at Darren Goldwater, at JB_Goldwater. And we do have a good program today. David Kleininger at 12:30. The SEC last week approved a June 8th start date for their conference programs. And we're going to get an update from David with the Post-Courier, and also Ray Tanner had a Zoom conference just a few nights ago, and we'll talk with him about some of the things that came out from Coach Tanner in that conference. I was in the mountains this weekend, so I kind of got bits and pieces of it, but we'll get a little bit more of an update on that. And Gene Sapikoff at 1:30 today. So Post-Courier Day around here. Gene will react to a lot of stuff, including the match, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. And a little bit of a different tone of college football than what we've heard over the last, say, 6 or 7 days.
It's Michigan.
And also the NFL. The head of their rules committee essentially has commented on last year's implementation of the pass interference changes, and he was quite critical of his own team.
Well, they didn't accomplish anything. They changed
really.
the rule and didn't
It wasn't much
abide by
better.
the rule. No, they never overturned anything.
It was actually worse.
It was.
There was a lot of stuff. Yeah, it was a train wreck. So we'll get to all that. But I'm certainly glad to be back. Wish I could have a little bit more time in the mountains. It flew by. But happy to be back in town, and hope everybody had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. It's certainly one of my favorite holidays. Just honoring and remembering and praying for all of those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice to allow us to do what we do today in our country. And without all of you, none of us are here. So for all those who have come before us and who may come after us, thank you so much. And yesterday was certainly for you, and I hope a lot of you spent a good time reflecting on those people and what they've done for the United States. So, I do want to tell you this. I do want to tell you. So we didn't get to play golf.
You didn't play golf?
It got rained out.
Oh, okay.
It rained all day on Friday, and we maybe could have got on the course late that afternoon, like 4 o'clock-ish hour. But we did have dinner reservations in Waynesville, which is 15 minutes from Maggie Valley, where we stay. So I didn't get to play. We did raft on Saturday. We self-guided a raft, actually, this time just down the Nantahala, which was great. It was fun because it was self-guided. If you've ever been whitewater rafting, you know what I mean. This river did not require a guide, especially for us, because we've rafted the Cheoah, which is a 5-star river, so many times. So it was kind of boring, but also kind of not. But I can pretty much handle any of the elements. Like, I can deal with the heat. I can deal with the cold. I can deal with the rain. I can deal with the snow. I just acclimate well. You just deal with it and move on. Let me tell you something.
What can't you handle?
I say all that. I don't know that I've ever been this cold.
How cold was it up there?
Well, the high on Saturday, to raft the Nantahala, you leave out of Bryson City. And we did it through NOC, which is the Nantahala Outdoor Center. And so you arrive there, you sit through your little video training, which, again, we were kind of rolling our eyes through this thing because we've done so many quality rafts. We thought this would be rather simple, and it was, but it was fun. And then they drive you 8 miles upriver. They give you your boat or your raft, which ours was a 4-person. And you put it in the water yourself, and you go. And so we did not – I've never worn a wetsuit. Okay, I've never worn a wetsuit. I've never worn a splash jacket. We always go in the summer, and sure, the water is certainly cold, especially in the Cheoah. It's always cold, but you're working so hard, like you enjoy the cold. And by the time you get finished with rafting the Cheoah, generally you're jumping in because it actually finishes in a lake. And you'll hop out and swim around for a minute and then pull yourself back up into the boat.
Because it's normally warmer.
Well, yeah, the temperature is usually, in the 70s or 80s, but that's mountain 70s, 80s. You're closer to the sun.
Yeah.
And you're just working. So, you're working. Like, I wore a splash jacket one time and took it off halfway through the raft. I said, this ain't going to work. I'm literally.
It's hot.
I'm stuck to it. I'm sweating so much. So we didn't do that this time. And I did speak to the little girl who, if I ever go back there, I'm going to give her a little bit of a piece of my mind.
The little girl.
She wasn't like a little girl, but she was, 20s or 30s or whatever. And I said, you think we need wetsuits or splash jackets today? She said, well, it's supposed to be hot. I said, well, I did check the weather. It said 74. I'm from Charleston. That's not exactly hot. She said, well, if you've rafted before. I said, well, I have. She said, well, you'll know. You probably won't need it. It's going to be sunny. I'm looking up going, okay.
Like, okay.
I don't know about the sun part, but we'll see. So we just, you know what? She's here every day. We'll listen to her. Bad move.
Yeah,
Bad
she
move.
should know.
Bad move. The last 3 miles, it was pouring rain. And it was the cold mountain rain where it's freezing
where it's
cold.
Miserable. Uh-huh.
And the water is, we started to hit some rapids here and there, and you get some waves. I took one direct one that was like being in the ocean, like a barrel, right in your face. And I was on the front right of the boat, so I'm one of the more, they need me up there. And we got to the last, I'd say, half mile, and my buddy who was sitting to the left of me was like convulsing cold. And
how long were you out there?
And I'm well, it's an 8 miles doesn't take long, especially if you're like that self-guided. We weren't planning to stop or anything, so we were really probably only on the river about 2 hours, and we got off. So, because the one thing about the Nantahala, it's relatively easy, but when you get to the very end, there's about a 10 to 12 foot drop. And this is the first time I'd actually done the river. Like I said, I've done the Chioa. I mean, we've class 4 and 5. We're fairly experienced rafters,
right?
But didn't realize this was coming, and got to that and said, "Oh no!" And he fell, and luckily didn't fall out of the boat. He went backwards, which means like the weight came my way, and we went that way, and I took it head on, and it just. I mean, I was already wet, but now I was like dripping wet, and got out and was shaking so bad, I couldn't even. We got to as soon as you get through that, you go to get to the side of the river, and you're getting out. So
did you bring the bourbon tasting with you? Because it sounds like that would be the good way to warm up.
The bourbon no, we didn't, because we had to drive. Had a 45-minute drive back home.
Okay.
So when we got back, the first thing we did was hop in the hot tub, and then got out and did our bourbon tasting.
How many guys were there?
Just 4.
All right.
Yeah, just 4. It was.
So the worst part is freezing.
Oh, so cold.
The best part was the bourbon.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was a good weekend. There's a lot of stories that can't be public, but they're
really a lot of four guys away from wives and
a lot of people watching, and I mean, we did a bunch of other stuff too. I mean, we went out to dinner and bounced around, did some things and stuff, but. Yeah, it was cold, but I will. So we had a bunch of bourbon. I think we had, gosh, I think 6 or 7 bottles. We were all supposed to bring one, but one buddy brought two, and then my cousin was given a smaller, like less than 750 liter, like I want to say 475 liter bottle of this very rare Buffalo Trace. It's $500 for this bottle.
How big was it?
No, it was about 475 liters.
Oh,
it was like that big.
For $500.
$500.
Was it good?
He didn't buy it. It was a birthday present given to him by his employees.
It's a hell of a gift.
And yes, quite the gift. And it's the best bourbon I've ever had. It's not even close. Should be for that amount of money, and it was. And I love Buffalo Trace anyways. But that and did something I brought was I think the second. Two of the guys thought this was the best. Robbie, my cousin, and I thought the Trace was the best. But I will recommend Wild Turkey Single Barrel Kentucky Spirit. It's fantastic. Fantastic.
Wild Turkey Single Barrel Kentucky Spirit.
It's called Kentucky Spirit. It's single barrel from Wild Turkey. And if you are, I'm a rocks bourbon guy, especially good bourbon. I don't like to mix it with anything. Let's drink it on the rocks.
Yeah.
But this, no chance moving forward. When I have that, it'll be neat from here on out because you don't want to put ice in that. It's too good. It's too good. Both of those are.
Did anybody bring the Oban?
No, we had. I put a picture on Twitter actually.
I saw that. It looked like most of them were at least halfway consumed.
I don't think so.
There
some of them were, but they had been kind of like two of those that one of my buddies brought. He had drank at his house. He's a bourbon collector.
Oh.
Old Forester 1920 and Noah's Mill, which I was not a fan of Noah's Mill at all. And then there was the Kentucky Spirit, Crown Royal Reserve, which is not bourbon, it's whiskey. And then this bourbon I've never heard of called Lip Service, made in California. It was a really weird-looking bottle, but it was fantastic. So we had 6 bottles. We had 6 bottles total. So it was good. I mean, that's for the bourbon tasting.
Yeah.
We had other bottles, but not for this tasting. The other stuff we knew what we were drinking.
There's a comment in here that when it comes to bourbon, my go-to is Angel's Envy.
I've never heard of that.
Never heard of it either.
But I would be down to try that. So
yeah,
whoever that's from,
I'm pretty much good to try
appreciate that.
Just about anything on the bourbon whiskey.
Yeah, I'm a big the bourbon trail in Kentucky is one of the neatest things you can do, and I've been to 4. Our friend Chris, who was with us this weekend, he's been to 16 different distilleries in the state of Kentucky. 16.
How many are there?
Oh gosh, a lot. But this was essentially between Lexington and Louisville. Like he's been to Beam. He's been to all the big ones, been in a bunch of smaller ones and stuff too. And Yeah, I mean, that is one of the neat trips. Like, even if you don't go up there for a football game, which we try to coincide this with football. We go up when the Gamecocks play against Kentucky, and then we'll go taste some bourbon and things like that. If you're ever just going to take a trip and you're like, first of all, Kentucky's a beautiful state. It's a gorgeous state. And if you ever go to, like, the mountains of Virginia or something like that, it's worthwhile to drive another couple hours north and do the Bourbon Trail one day, go to 3 or 4 of them, and then drive back to wherever you're going, or Tennessee, or wherever you are, wherever you're staying, somewhere up there in the mountains. So, anyways, that's my quick story, and I'm certainly sticking to that.
You're not going to delve into any of the late night sessions.
Yeah, really wasn't. First night we stayed up late, but we didn't get there till late. We didn't get there till 9:30, and we sat around and didn't really realize what time it was. The next 2 nights we were in bed 11:30. You do like, my wife makes fun of me because my idea of vacation and her idea of vacation are 2 different things. Like,
oh yeah,
I like to go do things on vacation. She likes to go sit on the house this weekend. And I was like, what are your plans? No, I don't know. Well, what do you? No. Okay. So like, but let's go hiking. Let's go raft. Let's go play golf. Let's go try this restaurant. Let's go do this. Let's go see the elk. Let's, whatever. I like to go do stuff. And she doesn't. Like, I'll get up at 7:00 in the morning and, all right, let's go. She's like, "Yeah, are you kidding me? Get back to bed."
You'd fit well in my family, but not like with me in this house. The rest of my family, because they want to go do stuff.
Yeah.
Generally, like on our honeymoon, I didn't want to take a honeymoon where we're traveling all over the place and going to do various things. That's the way I feel about vacations.
So that's
I'll golf though.
If I'm going to like a beach or something, like if you're going to go to the Bahamas or something like that, give me the tiki bar on the beach and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a big fan of the beach, but on vacation, a place that's like a resort like that, okay, I can hang all day. Might want to go play around a golf or, maybe mix in something else like a scuba dive, something fun. But the majority of it, no, I don't need it to be planned top to bottom every day. No. But like the mountains, going to a football game away, going out west to see our family in Wyoming, I like to go see stuff and go hang out and things like that. But anyways. New York. We went to New York a few years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to see everything. I mean, you can't really just sit in New York.
Well, you can't really see everything either.
Yeah, you got to get out and go do something.
I mean, unless you're going to be there for a while.
No, we weren't. I was getting engaged and coming home. But yeah, anyways, it was neat. But so speaking of did come home in time Sunday to watch the match.
That was my next question.
Got home about probably 30 minutes before they were set to tee off, and certainly was a little fearful that would happen because of the weather. But really, really neat yesterday from Turner Sports PR. Good little graphic they put out on Twitter. 5.8 million average viewers across TNT, TBS, True TV, and HLN. $20 million, which was raised. I think we knew that. 6.3 million was the peak viewership between 5:45 and 6, and the number one program of the day across all of television. It was also the highest rated golf match ever.
It beat the PGA Championship and the Open from last year.
And it should have. So let me say this. If this might come across wrong. This was not all about the money. This was not all about the golf. This was about getting to know the personalities in the telecast. That's all it was about.
That's where
period. The end.
That's where Turner hit a home run.
That's the period. The end. Because if it was all about the money, and you said, "Well, we're just going to put a golf match together to raise $20 million or $10 million to start and get to 20." I tell you what. Let's put Steph Curry out there. Let's put Dak Prescott out there, or let's put Aaron Rodgers out there. We'll throw Rory in there and Ricky Fowler.
What about Jordan or Barkley?
Well, that's where I'm getting to.
Yeah.
Like, you needed the biggest names who people are infatuated with. We're all infatuated with these guys. Like, we want to know these guys. We all want to sit down at a bar and have a drink with them. We want to play around a golf with them. We'd like to go on go-karts with Peyton Manning. I mean, like, these are very, very appealing personalities of the greatest athletes we've ever seen. They are, but their personalities, like, we want to get to know them, and that's what made this cool. Like, ever since what happened with Tiger 11 years ago happened, people became even more invested in Tiger Woods' true story of, okay, well, who is Tiger? And Peyton and Tom and Phil, these guys really opened themselves up, and they are huge names because of their accomplishments in sports, but also because they've been in a bunch of commercials, and we've had a glimpse into their lives before, but now we had a real glimpse. Peyton's line of, yeah, they wanted us to dress the same. I wasn't going to wear red and black.
That was great.
Stuff like that. Like people engage in that. It was an engaging golf match.
How about on the range when Peyton was giving it to Brady and he went through a list of pretty funny things, and then he was like, how about Nick Foles? Did you bring Nick Foles out here? And that was what got a reaction from Brady.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's the cheap shot.
That's the cheap shot.
But this is the model moving forward. There isn't going to be a whole ton of crowd noise. If there's a way, and we saw this in the baseball all-star game last year, where players were mic'd up while they're at the plate. They're mic'd up while they're in the outfield. They're having conversations with the guys in the booth while the game is going on. If there's no fans out there and there's no general ambiance, that's how it's got to be. Now, I don't know how realistic it is for a regular season game or a playoff game or any game of actual consequence to be talking to guys.
Mm-hmm.
But that is an angle that has to be explored. That in some form or fashion, that is how I think that's how we're going to come out of this. And then even when things return more to normal, I think we're going to see more and hear more of the players during broadcast, because the feedback has been, rightfully so, phenomenal. It has to keep going. However they can keep it going, that part has to keep going.
I think so. And will it be as technically engaged as this weekend was? No, it won't be. But Darren, like, one of the things has become a fabric of the world, really, is everybody has this platform, which is social media, to say jerk, or I can't stand Peyton Manning or Tiger Woods, F off, or whatever it may be. This gives you an opportunity to realize that a lot of these people are just like us. And you saw this weekend a very cool side of all four of them. The golf was okay. It was okay. No shocker that Tiger played decently on his own course. They had the elements to deal with. I think Phil got frustrated at times. Who hasn't been on a golf course frustrated? That was neat to see. Can't really show a lot of that, and you certainly don't get to hear a lot of that when they play in these major tournaments. Brady and Peyton, especially Brady early on, hit a lot of shots we've all hit. I mean, you watch the little tracker and you're going, holy moly, gosh, I hit those every time I go out there.
I read that Brady shot a 50 on the front.
May have.
It could have been worse.
Yeah, may have.
He was all over the place, and I loved every second of it.
But he was like the best dressed golfer out there. You know what I mean? Like, he had the pants and everything matched.
And he split his pants.
I mean, but these were, I think, again, why this was so cool was because we felt part of this. Like, I have those same conversations. I joke with my friends the same way they joke with their buddies on the golf course. And Tiger Woods really is pretty funny. I'm even saying this personally speaking. He reminds me of myself in this way only. He has a very dry sense of humor. And like, when you have a dry sense of humor, you always click it in at the right times, but you also have to be ready to wear it.
Uh-huh.
Because people will come back at you with that, because sometimes they don't know how to take it. So you got to be able to handle the response.
These guys can take it.
Certainly. I mean, but that's my point. Is like, you got to see the people, not just the players, and I thought that was really cool.
Yes, I've told this story before. The reason that I got into sports media was because I want to know the people, because I wanted to know more than just a soundbite, or to know more than just a quote in the newspaper or something like that. I mean, that's what's interesting to me. And the majority of professional athletes, the vast majority, are good people.
Absolutely.
They're good people that you could easily hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
And Scott Van Pelt put out a tweet recently, yesterday or 2 days ago, and he said, good life advice is you treat superstars like they're normal people. Treat the normal people like superstars. And that that resonated with me because they're normal people with really, really cool jobs and even cooler bank accounts.
No doubt about it, man. It was I really enjoyed watching it. I watched the large majority of it. I hadn't seen my children all weekend, so we were entertaining the kids and stuff, but sitting on the back porch and I had the TV on and things like that, and the volume up so you could hear what was going on. I really didn't care who won it. I knew right off the rip, though, that had you and I bet on this stuff, I would have won because there was no way Tiger wasn't going out there in his red and black.
Okay, but that's about the only – so I had that Brady would be wearing the TB12, that logo on his hat. I got that part right.
Yeah.
I got right that that Phil would be wearing the hat and not the visor, and that's something – so you missed Friday's show. Rafael Esparza was on with us from – mybookie.ag, and he said the one thing, take it to the bank. If you want to guarantee a win, Phil's going to wear a visor. I said, no, he's not, and he didn't.
Do you think you would have had it not been raining, though?
I don't know.
Because only a couple of days before this, I read the weather report right here on the air. It was supposed to be sunny all day, and then this little system developed.
Yeah, I don't know what he would have worn. It doesn't matter what he would have worn. He didn't wear it. I don't know if it counted the Gronk reference on the range. Did that count as Gronk being referenced in the match? Probably. It was on the broadcast, so probably. But it was fun.
I never saw a Super Bowl ring.
No, neither did I.
Never saw a Super Bowl ring.
And
so I would have been wrong on that.
I don't recall seeing a green jacket. Was there ever a highlight or a flashback to anyone in Augusta?
I don't know that they did any highlights of the careers of any of these
I don't
guys.
think so either. And I don't think we saw any football highlights either of Peyton and Brady.
Yeah. I did find it interesting, and I know that Turner kicked in the remaining funds because I think they were about $220,000 short of $20 million, but they were like, you had to think the whole time was, here's our plan, we're going to get to $10 million today. And here's how we're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the people they had involved in this, the Russell Wilsons of the world and all these people that were, well, I'll give you $100,000 for this, Brooks Koepka and stuff like that.
That was great.
You had to feel like it was kind of already like on the hook. They were going to do that, but then they would just tweet it out during the broadcast. Hey, well, Brooks Koepka was going to give $100,000 but they knew that was coming.
But at least, see, I don't know if they knew because when somebody told Brady, I don't know if it was Brian Anderson or Barkley, who said, hey, and they flashed the tweet up on the screen from Koepka. I think it was if you get a par on any hole, because Brady was in the woods. If you get a par on any hole, it's $100,000 that I'm donating. And when they told Brady, it almost was like he was surprised. And then, of course, he got it by holing out for his fourth
shot of the day.
His fourth shot on a par 5.
Right after Barkley was riding his tail, too.
You know the best part? He didn't win the hole.
Right. They have the hole. But Barkley was all over him, and then that thing somehow spins back into the hole, and I just laughed. It was like, of course it does.
Yeah.
These are what the great ones do in anything. They find a way to, just like we saw in the dance with Tiger Woods, take some type of criticism or that utilize something in their minds to, okay, it's go time right here.
Yep.
And he hold it. It was awesome. It was awesome. So I really enjoyed it. I'm with you. I do hope that in the future we see a little bit more between the ropes type stuff in golf, between the lines type stuff in the rest of these sports, if we can, to an extent. Now, they've done this for a long time. They have, mic'd up quarterbacks and things like that in the past, but they have to play it back because they're not going to tell guys in the middle of a game, don't say so-and-so because you're on TV. Those guys are going to go, screw you. I'm doing what I need to do to win today.
They had the delay on, though, because there were times where we lost audio, for a good chunk. They're on the green. They're all together. You could tell, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
That's the part I wanted to hear.
It was about a 10-second delay, I think, probably.
At least. There must have been, yeah.
Somewhere in the 10 to 30-second range where they were just able to hit that button real quick. But, yeah, it was great. Glad we got to see it. Gene Sapkoff's going to talk to us about that today as well, Darren, at 1:30. And a couple of other things will be in that conversation. DB's Cheesesteaks is what I'm craving. I haven't eaten there now in 6 days, so maybe that'll be today's lunch. It is the best cheesesteak in town, dbscheesesteaks.com. And you can, of course, go in there and eat now, but also delivery. And don't forget, DoorDash, whatever app you use, DB's Cheesesteaks uses that as well. The Buffalo Chicken Cheesesteak is mine. I'll endorse that thing until the end of time. And don't forget to get the boardwalk fries. And that entire menu is wonderful, and it's online at dbscheesesteaks.com. Burgers, hot dogs, sandwiches, whatever you want. But the cheesesteak is just the best. The cheese is melted into the meat. It's not on top of it. It's melted into the meat.
That's the part that and then your definition, or not definition, the explanation of the buffalo chicken cheesesteak thing.
It's fantastic.
Every time you go into that, that's just making me sit there and salivate.
And soft bread. It's not the crunchy. It's soft. Like it's all. I don't know how he does it. It's amazing.
That's the key. I mean, if you want a good sandwich, you want a good sub. So I'm not a hoagie guy, but you want a good sandwich or a sub. The bread
has to be soft.
It's got to be. It's key, man. It's key. I bet you he orders that bread. I bet it's delivered down from Philly.
It might be.
I bet you.
It's a question for Danny.
I wonder if he makes it or if he has it shipped in from a place that is known for it.
It's the best I've ever had with cheesesteak, and that includes a cheesesteak I had in Philly last summer. All right, time for a timeout. When we return, David Cloninger with the Post and Courier, and we'll check in on what's going on in the SEC. We did find out about the June 8th date just a few days ago, and the Gamecocks' response to that, and a whole lot more. So hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show live, loud, and online, and on YouTube now, and Facebook Live. We'll be right back.
We've been telling you guys about Stokes Volkswagen and the best car offer of all time, but you only have a couple more days to actually cash in on that offer. Here's Ryan Nelson with more.
That's correct. It is an unprecedented offer that Volkswagen has decided it will be good only until June 1st. So we need you to get into Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate. It's 120 days until your first payment, 0% APR for 72 months for new 2019 and 2020 Volkswagens. Check them out online, stokesvw.com.
What's up, guys? It's JB. Obviously, things have been kind of crazy with the coronavirus taking over our lives. We're stuck inside with family, finding ways to be creative and probably tapping the liquor cabinet a little bit. If you don't have Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam in yours, put on your mask and gloves and head to Bottles or Burris liquor stores here in Charleston. The Blackberry is my personal favorite on the rocks, but the original Whiskey Jam is Patrick's. So either way, you're winning with Whiskey Jam. WhiskeyJam.com, PatrickDavis.com.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
As businesses start to open up around South Carolina, we have Ryan Nelson back in here to tell us about Dog and Duck Family Pubs, the 3 locations, and some new hours going on. What's up?
That's right. We now offer indoor dining and patio seating outside. The new hours are Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. now. Slowly getting back into the normal routine, or so what we think, and we hope everybody comes out and supports local businesses like Dog and Duck.
And you still have family special meals as well?
That's right. Always the family-style meals, and you can always get curbside pickup or carry out. If you're not ready to venture outside yet, we're here for you.
Honey Baked Ham in Somerville and in Mount Pleasant is your home for catering and lunch. Honey Baked Somerville, owned by former Gamecock right-hander Mike Sisko, is just off the interstate and they are ready to cater to your next business or family meal. Plus, drop in for an incredible sandwiches daily for lunch. The Mount Pleasant location is at the foot of the Ravenel Bridge and always ready to serve and cater to your next meals as well. Plus, delivery is available. Honeybake.com to find your menu today.
Let me see what you can do.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
And that's just how we do it.
Live, loud, and online.
All right, 12:34 on a dreary, rainy Tuesday afternoon here in the Low Country of South Carolina. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online. Of course, if you're on the Podbean app, we appreciate that. Also, we're visible on YouTube. Type in JB and Goldwater, and also on Facebook Live. So 2 ways to watch and listen to the program. One way just to listen, and you're lucky to get to listen to this guy, our friend David Cloninger with the Post and Courier. It's Post and Courier Day around here because Gene Sapikoff's set to follow him in about an hour. Hey, bud.
Hey, how's it going, Jim?
How are you, man?
Can't complain. Just wondering when it's going to be out of pop-up shower season. I kind of figure that it's reaching that point where every time I lace up my boots to go out in the yard and do some work, it starts raining. So I guess I can't really complain, but once I get started on something, I like to finish it.
Well, it's been, a couple of weeks ago we didn't have rain for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and now we've had it every day. I was in the mountains this weekend up in Maggie Valley, and it rained almost the whole time we were there as well. And now I'm home, and it's raining all week. I don't know when the rain stops.
That's terrible. Did you get to go visit Ghost Town in the Sky? Is that still a thing?
All right, so
Quincy Railroad.
Yeah, so here's my family has a house right next to Ghost Town in the Cataloochee Ski Resort, but Ghost Town has been closed for quite some time. Some lady bought it, and she bought it, I want to say, 2 years ago, and has been planning to reopen this as some type of, theme parkish, but a little bit different. And I'm not exactly sure what all is included in that. Well, we haven't seen anything happen for the last 2 years, and then talked to somebody this weekend up there who actually owns a restaurant right on 19, right there on Silco Road, who said, no, she is planning to reopen that. It just hopefully will be done by sometime maybe next year. So I don't know. Right now, people are finding their way up the mountain, D.C., to sleep up there and graffiti and, do all the things you shouldn't do, probably drugs. God only knows what else.
Of course, there's always a few doorknobs out there who are going to screw up a good time for the rest of us.
No kidding. Kind of like this virus. All right, so let's go back to last week. So we know about the news that the SEC has said, okay, June 8th, you're good to go. And then Coach Tanner on Zoom a few days ago, Darren and I was on vacation, and Darren had other commitments, so we weren't able to log on and listen to it. But Coach Tanner, that was kind of a response, right? A Q&A with guys like yourself, able to kind of ask some questions about the game plan moving forward with this. One of the things he did say that he has like a 7-person team, and I think it was you that actually asked this question, DC. What is this team, and what do they do at South Carolina?
Well, pretty much what it is, Jamie, is that they have 7 people who are kind of overseeing the whole campus just in response to coronavirus. Now, most of that is tied with the medical form of it. If anybody starts showing symptoms or asymptomatic, they get a report that they've been in a quote-unquote hot area for the virus's upswell, they'll go get that student or athlete and, make sure that all the safety protocols are addressed. So it's led by Zoe Foster, who has actually been with the USC Health Services Department for a number of years. She's kind of heading it up. And then there's some athletic department officials, Coach Tanner's part one of them. And then they pretty much just kind of oversee the university's response to a COVID situation among the active student body. So they've been formed, and they're going to pretty much be swinging into action once all of the students and football players start returning to campus over the next couple of weeks.
Do they have a sense of which athletes will be coming back first? I'm assuming it'll be in waves, but whether it's some of a football team or some of another team in the fall, any word on that?
Right now, I can tell you that definitely all of the football players who can will be coming back over the next couple of weeks. The date that they can start working out is June the 8th in the actual weight room at the ops building. Nothing's stopping them from lifting weights on their own or going running right now. But they'll be able to start on June the 8th. However, they will report earlier to campus, probably about anywhere from 8 to 6 days before. And that's when they'll start getting tested for the virus to see if anybody's bringing it with them, and they can go ahead and take those appropriate measures. So it'll be football in this first wave. That's anywhere from 100 to 110 athletes. And at least at this point, the other fall sports athletes, that's men's and women's soccer, women's cross country, the women's volleyball team, and the basketball teams, which are allowed to come back, right now they're probably going to wait a little while. That's just unofficial, but most of them have said, yeah, we're probably going to wait maybe a couple of weeks, maybe until July before they come back and start getting on their regular schedule.
I'm assuming that's because it's less intensive than football, right? And they don't need the same amount of time to get ready to play a season?
Well, it's a little bit. Workouts are very localized depending on which sport you are in. But mostly it's just to kind of make sure the campus doesn't get overwhelmed because, we're in new territory here. Everybody is. So you have to get, let's start with one, for lack of a better term, call them the control group. See how it's going to work with football, because with football you can kind of see how the procedures are going to go, but they're all going to be over at the ops building. They have their own self-contained facility. With some of the other players, soccer has their own weight room, but with cross country, with basketball, they share a weight room over at the Coliseum. Cross country and volleyball, they usually go over and use the baseball team's weight room. So it's one of those where you want to keep it as localized as possible to make sure all of your procedures are in place, and then you can start being more open about, having more groups and more places on campus, and therefore more potential problems to ward off.
On Twitter at DCPNC, David Cloninger covering the Gamecocks for the Post and Courier. There's a 3-stage screening process before these athletes arrive. What is that process?
It's pretty simple, Jamie. They look at them, and first of all, they take the COVID test, and then they see what those results are. And going into that is where are they coming from? Did they get here by plane? Did they get here by car? All kinds of things about how they got to USC. But then all those questions can pretty much be answered with the initial test. If it comes back positive, of course, you see how symptomatic they are and take the further steps then, and then you pretty much start isolating them, if they need to be. As in leading up to the time where they come to a public area, you stress the protocols with them, you assign them to a certain group, and about what time they can come into the area, and then once they get there, Jamie, you get scanned for your temperature. You have to turn over all your personal effects, your phone, your wallet, your car keys. Those get disinfected while you're waiting, and then you are allowed to go into the building and do what you please. And, of course, after you leave, all of that stuff is disinfected again.
Is there a chance, DC, that additional prohibitive measures could be put in place at South Carolina and certainly at other places? But, for instance, we all know what is right next to campus in Columbia, and that is 5 Points, and athletes spend as much time down there, believe it or not, as the regular student. Is there a chance where things like curfews could be installed for the football team and other athletics programs at South Carolina?
Well, there's always a chance that more preventative measures will be taken, Jamie, just because this thing is so new that anytime you start any kind of new initiative, you're always going to have a few glitches, a few tweaks to make. With something of this magnitude, of course, there's going to be something that comes up where it's not just as simple as cause and effect, question and answer. There's always going to be other particular trades. Now, with that kind of stuff, going to 5 points, there is always kind of the recommendation, if not straight up order, to a lot of the athletes, don't you go to 5 points. Because if I hear you've been down there, you're going to be in trouble. Mm-hmm. That's just what it is. A lot of coaches have had to do that and say, that's it, bottom line. If I hear you down there, you're going to be in serious trouble. So that being said, these are voluntary workouts. Voluntary, you can define that however you want.
Uh-huh.
But these are college kids. They've been away for a while, and as Ray Tanner said, you would hope that, they would heed some of the warnings, but young people tend to, his words, branch out a little more than grown folks. So, it might be a couple of things that pop up, but they're hoping that if they do go to 5 points, go to the Vista, go anywhere to get something to eat, talk to your buddies, whatever, that you do it with safety protocols. Wear gloves, wash your hands, wear a mask, just do the things that need to be done so you're not putting yourself at risk or the rest of the community.
Is there any underlying tone of concern would be the wrong word, because obviously there is some concern, there's still a lot of unknown, but about potentially pushing this whole plan back, because we heard what Michigan what their athletic director or president has said recently. We know that not the entire country is as opened up as South Carolina might be. As the SEC and as the Gamecocks move forward here, is there any talk or chatter kind of beneath the surface that, look, there's still a chance that this doesn't happen?
there's always the possibility of that happening, but they wouldn't have put this plan out in public and addressed all the measures they take if they weren't pretty certain that they were going to go ahead and act on it. Now, of course, if something does happen, they'll have to scale it back. They'll have to redo it. They might have to cancel it altogether and send everybody home. But right now they feel they're at the point where the virus, at least in terms of how it's going to be addressed here in Columbia and here in the state of South Carolina, is to a point where it can be managed, and that they can safely guard these athletes once they start coming back to school. So, yeah, I mean, it's like I've said before, every possibility is just that. Anything could happen because we just don't know how to deal with something like this. But they feel that they're at a place where they have enough protocols in place, enough safety procedures that they could say, okay, everybody's going to be good if we subscribe to this. And then once they get in here, get into the system, they just hope that it stays that way.
DC, last week I kind of used this phrase with Darren that as we continue, and I say we, everybody across America for the most part, to responsibly practice this term social distancing, leagues like the SEC and others are implementing into that entering or they're basically also social testing. You're social distancing, but we're also going to socially kind of test what we can and can't do and what will be effective and what won't be effective. And saying all of that, I did find it interesting in this conference call with Coach Tanner. There was an interesting question, and usually those come from guys like yourself. I know you're always the first one, but you also ask some pretty good questions. We were kind of under the impression that, like, okay, they'll bring players in, maybe by position group to keep the numbers down and separate them. But logically speaking, and again, here's the question, wouldn't it be more beneficial to maybe split players up? Like if, again, I don't know who asked it, but if you have a bunch of linebackers in there and you get one linebacker that's tested positive, you might not have a linebacker. So what does that plan look like?
Well, it's pretty much what they're going to do is try to stagger who's in the building at one time and who's in a separate area of the building at one time. They'll have, a block of time in which they can enter and leave the building because they don't want everybody saying, okay, you need to be here by 7:15. And then you have a big crowd at the door, everybody waiting to get tested and all that kind of stuff before you actually walk into the building. So I think that they are trying to split it up as much as possible and not having position groups of players come in like that. And that could be a random lottery. That could be by age. That could be by alphabet. Who knows? But they want to keep it to 10, 12 players and within the framework of how they want to do it. Now, they're not having position meetings in the building at the time. They're still going to do those by Zoom. So really, it's just coming in and being able to work out where you can. And if the strength coach can just monitor 10 to 12 guys at a time, it really doesn't matter that, say a wide receiver is doing workouts built for a defensive lineman. You don't have to really switch around a whole lot of stuff like that. So they're trying to limit it by having that pod of 10 to 12 players kind of on constant rotation going in and out the building, and that way you don't have too many people grouped up because, like I said, they're still not going to have position meetings in a room like that, and they're still not going to watch film in the ops building like that. You still got to go home to do that.
What, David, is maybe the timeline for this policy? I guess the question I'm asking is this wait and see? Like, okay, we've been doing this for 3 weeks. This is working. Let's try to do this now. Or this is going to be for the entire month of June. Have you heard any news on that or had any conversations about that topic?
Well, that's going to be the question and kind of the forever being asked question of saying, this is working pretty well. Should we go ahead and start this? I can tell you that there is no definite timeline or plan to say, all right, here's where I want to take the next step. Well, what I can definitely tell you is that next step, when it's taken, will be a very tiny baby step. And the next one after that will be a very tiny baby step, just because you don't want to go full speed ahead into this thing and open yourself up to have another outbreak like we just had these past 2 months. So whatever they do, they'll tiptoe into the next phase and say, look, this is working. You try to increase it in the smallest increment as possible to make sure that there is no outbreak. I mean, I doubt that will be like, okay, well, this has been working for 3 weeks. Let's go ahead and have a team-wide meeting and then just kind of cool it for a week and see how it goes. They're not going to do that. But they might start increasing the size of groups. They might start saying, okay, well, these two groups can be in a large room together, like the weight room, and then see how it goes from there. Because, Jamie, all the plans in the world, you can have them, and they can be planned to the nth degree. But once one person comes up positive for the virus, everything gets shut down. And everything says, okay, we got to go back to ground zero and start this again. Because if one guy's got it, you don't know how many of your other 100 to 110 players have got it.
How have the press conferences been on Zoom? Is this something moving forward that's going to keep happening? I mean, look, I would imagine you guys are all like me. I mean, if you could sit here like this and have a press conference, it's a lot easier than having to traipse your way all the way over to Williams-Brice or wherever these press conferences are going to be happening. So is it sort of normal?
It definitely has been an adjustment.
Okay.
Because while you're used to looking at the computer screen, you're not really used to doing it during a press conference. Some of the other ones have been great. It's been as much of a Q&A as possible. The other day with Ray Tanner's one, it was one where we had to submit our questions in writing. Then the SID read them to Ray Tanner. So that's okay because, he can answer the question. But if you have a follow-up or something that maybe he didn't address in the answer, you can't really get that right away. Mm-hmm. So for the time being, I think this is going to have to be, because SEC Media Days is coming up, and I seriously doubt that they're going to have it as they usually have it. What does that mean? Do we all got to sit in the Zoom for 8 hours a day?
Yeah, right.
Oh man, boy, yeah.
Did you get all the questions answered or asked? I guess when you had to submit them to the SID, because that's like another layer of iffiness.
Well, that's the thing. I sent in my 3, and they were all read to Tanner, and he answered them. So I was good. I can't speak for all the other folks, but they let it go on for about 5 minutes with okay, does anybody have any other further questions?
Good.
And nobody typed one in, so I guess it went smoothly for everybody.
I mean, if Steve was smart, he'd do a separate one for guys like you and Josh, because you and Josh always have questions. Right?
Well, that's true, but then you start getting into favoritism, and you can't do all that kind of stuff.
That's
so
true.
you just let us do the shoe leather stuff, and everybody else is free to join in too. But that's the thing too. The one the other day, it didn't have the video, at least on our side. It wasn't showing our pictures. So I was like, well, that's cool. I don't have to put on like a collared shirt or anything, or actually brush my hair. So that's another benefit / adjustment that you have to make. Like, well, I mean, I don't have to shave off this month-long beard. Because who cares? Well, I mean, who am I trying to impress here?
Yeah, I got more going on here than I've had in a long time.
No, not me. I've had mine since college.
That's the thing. I mean, quarantine has allowed every male in this great world of ours to answer the question, would I look good with a beard?
That's true.
The answer at my house is no.
No.
Yeah, this is probably coming off pretty soon because it's just not appealing.
A couple more things here, and then we'll let you go, DC. Real quick, Coach Tanner did say during this Zoom conference the other day that they might be able to get a couple of spring practice days back in July, but the NCAA hasn't necessarily commented on that yet, so we're still waiting to see there. I think that Gamecock fans, the large majority of them, really are anxious to see the new park. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on at Williams-Brice Stadium, a lot of renovations, a lot of new suites being added, a lot of club-level space and things like that. I'm certainly one of them that's looking forward to that invite to be able to come tour this stuff before the season starts, DC. Is that timeline, are they still on pace and on schedule to get this done before the season opener? That's part one of this question. Part two is, have they had challenges selling these? They're not cheap. We know that. With what's going on here, you might have to give some season tickets back to folks. You might have people canceling anyways. That's financially speaking, that's not the best scenario for South Carolina and others like Alabama to have. So have you had those conversations with anybody?
Oh, sure. And first of all, the construction's going well. It's still on pace to be scheduled to be finished by September the 5th. I know everybody read about the breakout that happened in Tuscaloosa where they were doing some renovations to Bryant-Denny Stadium. They had to shut down for a while. That hasn't happened at Williams-Brice, so they are still working as we speak, and it's set to be done by the 5th. September 5th. But, with the season tickets, again, that's a big reason why they were able to, extend some of the season ticket deadlines for folks. As we sit here right now, they've probably sold about 45,000 season tickets, which is slightly above the increase rate from last year. Now, that's right now. And we don't know what's going to happen when a lot of people, are told, hey, we can't fit you in this week. You can't go to the stadium because it's limited capacity. I mean, I think this right now, Jamie, is, well, you don't know what's going to happen with the season, so better safe than sorry, maybe. Now, anybody's going to be able to get a refund if they want. So if you sold 45,000 season tickets and maybe you're told in September, hey, we only got limited capacity, you can only come to, 3 games. Well, that's probably going to cut back a lot of that revenue. But at least on the surface, ticket sales are going better slightly than they were at this time last year. We'll have to see how that is affected once the season gets here and they start hammering out definite plans for here's what capacity is going to look like and here's who can come game to game.
On the women's basketball side of things, Gamecocks, Dawn received a top 30 commitment yesterday. I think it's Aubriana is how you would pronounce her first name, or Bree.
She goes by Bree.
Bree Hall. But Dawn said, DC, maybe a week or two ago on Twitter that they had 4 commitments, and nobody knew about any of those. This appears to be one, but there apparently are 3 others out there, and from what I understand, they're pretty darn good ones.
Well, put it this way, Jamie. Dawn, can say what she wants, and she likes, informing her fans of what's going on. So, when she says that another birdie's gone to the nest, that's great. It's exciting. But, it's one of those things for, as a reporter, I can find out who they are. Now, yesterday's surprised me. I didn't think Bree Hall was coming. I thought that she was going to commit to someone else. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. That one surprised me. So the other 3, though, I'm pretty sure I know who they are. Okay. Now, Dawn is prohibited from saying their names until they sign a letter of intent. Right. That's NCAA rules. I mean, it's an ethical thing. I'm pretty sure I know who they are, but I'm not going to take their moment by saying who it is before they do.
Sure.
Now, yesterday, I was wrong. I had no idea. I didn't think that Bree Hall was going to commit to South Carolina. I thought she was going somewhere else. But these other 3, I'm pretty sure I know, just from people I talk to. In some cases, have already written up the stories for when they do announce, and it's a long way of saying Dawn's not lying. You're really going to like who these other 3 recruits are.
Wow.
You're really, really going to like them.
Any chance? Last year might have been the greatest recruiting class in the history of women's basketball. Any chance this class approaches that?
Well, all I'll say is that there's yesterday. There are 10 of the top 25 recruits still uncommitted for the class of 21.
Oh boy!
All right, 10 of the top 25, and they can't get all 10, of course, but they're in on 6 of them, including the number 1 recruit.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that and say we'll just have to see how it goes, because a lot of the times those are determined where the number 1 recruit goes. It is interesting to say that their class of 15, which brought in the top overall recruit, Aja Wilson, did not finish number 1 in the class rankings. It finished number 2. Last year's finished number 1, also without the number 1 overall recruit. But this year, they're in on the number 1 recruit. They're in on several others in that top 10 and top 25. Wow. So I have a feeling that it's definitely going to be one of the top at least 3 classes in the country. I'll put that as a nice safe number, and probably above 3.
We'll
have to see how it goes.
Where did you think Bree was going to go?
I thought she was going to Kentucky. She's from Dayton. It's a 2-hour drive from Lexington. I'd heard that, and it's just one of those things where if I have a list of recruits and there's a bunch of stars behind my name, I'm like, go ahead and write that one up because it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. With her, it was like, there's a chance, but probably not. I'm like, okay, well, if it happens, it happens. Then the video pops up. I'm like, oh, okay, well, cool. So, another story for the paper and a way to really start off that recruiting class.
All right, final question here. We're going to slide to the diamond. Brandon Fields has announced he is withdrawing his name from the Major League Baseball draft. One of the top players that the Gamecocks recruited for this class here, and he's going to enroll at South Carolina, which is huge. Obviously, a large piece of this puzzle is the fact that the draft is only going to be 5 rounds, but it is anticipated that there are a lot of players that South Carolina had on this or in this recruiting class who were, I'm not so sure, as in basically saying if they get the right amount of money, they're going to go pro, and it looks like the tide certainly has turned to that narrative because of what's going on with the draft. So, we all know that Mark and Skylar and Stewart and that group, those coaches, they need a lot of good players to get Gamecock baseball back to where they're used to being, somewhere ranked in the top of the country. But I don't know that they expected to see what they're probably going to start seeing over the next few weeks.
Oh, sure, Jamie. And, it's part of it that every year there's probably 3 or 4 kids in that high school recruiting class that that they're not coming to school. And it's been a very good system where I sit down with the coach and the list of the recruits and, say, okay, who's coming and who's not. And they'll usually point 3 or 4 and say, no chance. You just sign them just in case something happens, Well, Brandon Fields is probably going to be one of those guys. In a normal year, he's probably going to go in the top 10 rounds of the draft. And there were some other considerations, too, like is he going to want to play football in college? Because while everybody comes in and thinks they can play football and baseball, very few actually do. It's just too tough to manage your time like that. So the first thing that happened was Fields said, I like football, but I think I want to stick with baseball. Oh, okay. That still doesn't really clear it up for college because you'll probably get a pretty high draft pick. But in him talking with Major League Scouts, and they were saying, we like you, but we don't know if we can just use one of 5 picks that we're getting this year on you. He went ahead and just told him, it's like, you know what, guys, it's cool. Don't worry about it. Don't draft me because I'm not going to sign. I'm coming to college at South Carolina. So that gives them the highest rated prospect in their recruiting class. It gives them a whiz-bang ball player. You do have to worry and wonder about where's he going to fit in because there might be some other guys coming back that you didn't expect.
Right.
There might be other high school recruits like Fields that you thought you weren't going to get and now you are going to get. But it's a big addition because the kid's a really good ball player. But, with the draft, it's going to be interesting to see how this happens because, Jamie, 4 seniors on the USC baseball team can come back if they so choose. All of those guys do want to play professional baseball, however. This year, probably none of them are going to get drafted in the top 5 rounds. And that means, okay, you're going to get $20,000 to go play pro ball if and when you can play this year. $20,000 after taxes is what? 12, 13K, depending where you are.
Right.
So it's going to be a real tough decision for those guys to come back. And right now, the only authority I can say is that Brandon Fields will be at South Carolina next year, and Carmen Majinski won't.
Yeah.
He's going to be a first rounder. He's only going to get $20,000 now, but he'll still get the regular signing bonus for a first or second round draft pick wherever he goes. It's just it'll be paid out half next year and half the year after that.
Could be a very bright future for Gamecock baseball. We certainly know they're going to have a numbers crunch. Talked to Skylar about that a couple of weeks ago, and once all this falls into place, we'll get him or Mark back on the line here and try to figure out how they're going to do this moving forward. DC, hopefully I didn't miss anything. We've kept you for half your day. What do you have coming up in the paper this week?
Well, we had a couple of stories in there today. Ray Tanner had some other interesting comments about South Carolina's other sports programs. We'll have those coming up. And probably in the next week or two, we'll have a couple of look backs at some of the greats of South Carolina football history. So be sure to keep your eyes peeled.
Always. On Twitter at DCPNC. Thank you, man. We appreciate everything. You're doing a great job covering all this stuff. I know it's been a challenge, but we certainly appreciate your hard work. We'll talk to you very soon.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
There you go, David Cloninger up there in Columbia, South Carolina. All right, the end of the hour is 5 minutes ago, so we'll hit our break here. Gene Sapikoff still ahead at 1:30. It's Post and Courier Day on our program. We'll dabble in some NFL stuff when we get back as well, and see what else Darren and I could come up with on a dreary start to the week.
There's some tropical nonsense out there. Yeah. It's not going to be.
Won't be anything.
No, but
it's just rain.
I just don't want to hear about it.
Me neither.
Look, that's not something I'm ready for.
I'm never May and then September. It's like May. No, man. I want to enjoy the weather. September, I want to enjoy football. We don't ever want hurricanes, but if we have to deal with it, let's deal with it in the summer.
And not during a pandemic.
No.
Ideally.
Hour 1 in the books. Time for a timeout. We'll be right back.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
What's up, guys? It's JB. Obviously, things have been kind of crazy with the coronavirus taking over our lives. We're stuck inside with family, finding ways to be creative and probably tapping the liquor cabinet a little bit. If you don't have Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam in yours, put on your mask and gloves and head to Bottles or Burris liquor stores here in Charleston. The Blackberry is my personal favorite on the rocks, but the original Whiskey Jam is Patrick's. So either way, you're winning with Whiskey Jam. WhiskeyJam.com, PatrickDavis.com.
We've been telling you guys about Stokes Volkswagen and the best car offer of all time, but you only have a couple more days to actually cash in on that offer. Here's Ryan Nelson with more.
That's correct. It is an unprecedented offer that Volkswagen has decided it will be good only until June 1st. So we need you to get into Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate. It's 120 days until your first payment, 0% APR for 72 months for new 2019 and 2020 Volkswagens. Check them out online, stokesvw.com.
Honey Baked Ham in Somerville and in Mount Pleasant is your home for catering and lunch. Honey Baked Somerville, owned by former Gamecock right-hander Mike Sisko, is just off the interstate and they are ready to cater to your next business or family meal. Plus, drop in for an incredible sandwiches daily for lunch. The Mount Pleasant location is at the foot of the Ravenel Bridge and always ready to serve and cater to your next meals as well. Plus, delivery is available. Honeybake.com to find your menu today.
As businesses start to open up around South Carolina, we have Ryan Nelson back in here to tell us about Dog and Duck Family Pubs, the 3 locations, and some new hours going on. What's up?
That's right. We now offer indoor dining and patio seating outside. The new hours are Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. now. Slowly getting back into the normal routine, or so what we think, and we hope everybody comes out and supports local businesses like Dog and Duck.
And you still have family special meals as well?
That's right. Always the family style meals, and you can always get curbside pickup or carry out. If you're not ready to venture outside yet, we're here for you.
You're listening to the JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online. Here are your hosts, Jamie Bradford and Darren Goldwater.
All right, 108. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online. Generally, you're listening to us on the Podbean app, and we appreciate that. You can now watch us on television, essentially, as I'm trying to figure out how to make sure.
I can hear your phone right now.
I know. I just had to turn it off, but trying to.
Sync
looking at all the
everything.
stuff you've got figured out here. Yeah, I've got my computer, I got a phone, but we're on YouTube. Type in JB and Goldwater, and you can watch what we're doing in here. You can also call us 843-321-8893, 843-321-8893 on Twitter at JB_Goldwater, at JBradfordSC, at Darren Goldwater, and then JB and Goldwater, and pretty much every other social media platform out there like Facebook and Instagram.
That's right.
Good work getting all this stuff up and going here.
I thought I had it like 5 or 6 different times. And I got all excited and then realized, now I got to do something different.
Yeah.
But I think I have my audio and I wouldn't go video engineer degree yet because that, I mean, in all transparency, when you see like news reporters and whatnot at home, they're using their iPhone. We're using my iPhone here as the camera because it's probably the best camera I got in the house. So then we had to figure out lots of other workarounds. But audio degree wise, yeah, I think I figured out that I should probably have my degree in some audio engineering.
So in 2017, I was in Greenville for the first and second rounds of March Madness.
Yeah.
And I was at the hotel the night after, or the night of the game. South Carolina beat Marquette. And then they had Duke coming up 2 days later. I think this was a Friday evening when I was at the hotel. And Jeff Goodman with ESPN at the time was staying. I was in the media hotel where everybody was staying from across the country. Right in, I think it's the Hyatt, right in downtown Greenville. And he was doing a live shot. I was actually, I just got back to my hotel room. I cut on TV, which naturally for me is right onto ESPN first.
Uh-huh.
So I cut on the TV, and I saw Goodman down in the lobby doing a live shot. Well, the Hyatt in Greenville, there's the lobby downstairs, and then there's an upstairs, like, lobby area. Like, you can walk around. It basically goes all around the hotel.
Okay.
And, there's Jeff Goodman. I know where to avoid because I was about to go back downstairs and order some food. Or I had ordered some food. I was going to pick it up. I had the flu. I had the flu. I got the flu the morning that I went up there on Thursday for practice that night. I was there on the floor for practice with the Gamecocks, with the basketball team and all this stuff. And I was, kind of reporting in that Thursday afternoon and then that Friday afternoon to Fan Talk. And I was doing my show on the road up there because I had a morning show at the time. But I had caught the flu. Like, literally, I woke up that morning. I said, this isn't good, but I'm going. Forget it. So I was so, every 2 seconds I'm washing myself, staying away. We talk about social distancing. I was staying away from everybody. I didn't want anybody to get the flu from me. Well, I go down. The point of me telling this is because of something you just said. I go down and I see Goodman still doing that live shot on his phone. And he had us, and I didn't realize even the ESPNs of the world, they just have a tripod stand and they put that phone up there and there you go. And he's sitting there with a microphone that he's got tied into it. And he's just doing his live shot in the lobby of the Hyatt Hotel and talking about the game that night and this, that, and the other. And I was like, wow, I thought there'd be a camera guy out there. Usually there's just one other guy, and he'd have the big camera on his shoulders, and they're doing this. Nope, he was just doing it with his phone.
Technology's nuts. And that was 3 years ago.
It was 3 years ago. I mean, you think about how much money it has saved people, especially in this time now. Now, like, the draft is different. They had to send all this equipment all over the place and stuff like that. But they could do all these reporters. You got your phone, right? Yep. Download this app. Bam. You're in.
It's part of the changing landscape for live television. The ability to do that in this multimedia journalist position. Now, that's not what Jeff Goodman is, but you'll see it a lot. That stations have what's called MMJ, multimedia journalist, and they're one-man bands, and you can do everything by yourself. So it's part of the evolution of the business that we are in, both of us, both radio and television, because it's forcing people to adjust. I mean, lots of people have lost jobs because of that, and then try and kind of recreate yourself. And this pandemic thing for broadcasters is going to be the same exact way, that there will be technology and if not new technology, new ways to use the technology that we have that will impact how things happen in the future. I mean, this is one of the more rapidly changing industries that I know of, and it's not slowing anytime soon.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's very easy to do things somehow. You have to have a little sense, but certainly very easy. All right, this is from Clemson. This is breaking per the similar conversation we just had a moment ago with David Cloninger. Clemson has announced that football players can return June 1, and that means when they get there, they have to socially distance for 7 days. June 8th is when Clemson will allow voluntary, quote, workouts to begin, just like at South Carolina. Also, of course, they must get tested for COVID-19, and they must receive an antibody test before participating in any workouts following those 7 days of social distancing. So this literally just a few moments ago broke from the upstate, but it's Clemson football, Clemson men's basketball, and Clemson women's basketball. June 8th voluntary workouts will start for all 3 of those programs.
Shocking, right?
Yeah.
The SEC comes back. South Carolina has announced their plans, and what do you know?
Yeah, here comes
Clemson.
Here comes well, and the ACC. I mean, it's no surprise again that the SEC is leading this charge. But you kind of had to figure last week when that date was set, June 8th, Darren, that the large majority was probably going to follow in very similar footsteps. That's why it kind of surprised me that, and I'm not going to say that it was a rogue comment, but I'm kind of surprised that as much positivity and forward-looking thinking and all these conversations we've had, that you had this Michigan president all of a sudden just a couple of days ago say, we're not playing football without students on campus. When literally the rest of the country is saying, well, no, that's not true.
If you don't want to, okay, but you're going to get left behind. So the Big Ten will come out, I'm sure, with some universal blanket statement covering all of the Big Ten, just like the SEC has done. They've been the leader for the whole thing, and that's been true from the very beginning. And the Big Ten has been there as well. I mean, they're amongst them. They're just a much quieter form of leadership. So I would imagine the Big Ten will say something soon, the ACC as well. But that's why I asked David Cloninger the question. Is there an underlying thought or some chatter that, okay, we're all putting out positive vibes, but this really might not happen? And to his credit, the answer was, that's not the chatter now. Of course, anything could change.
Anything can change.
But
sure,
that's not the chatter now. When we had Rafael Esparza on from Vegas a few days ago on Friday, he was saying that out in Vegas, he's hearing that the season college football won't happen in the fall. And, I mean, it was almost like the news and the sports world that they're in Vegas is a different world than we're living in down here.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it's not different. I'm not going to get into this media and politics thing because we're consuming our sports news in basically the same spots, right? I mean, there's ESPN, there's CBS, there's Fox, there's The Athletic. We're consuming our news from sports in a very similar fashion. So why in Vegas is there one sense? And I would assume in many other places it's more like it is here, that it's probably going to happen. Just how?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're just moving into phase 2 of our learning experience with this pandemic, because phase 1 has been everybody stay home and stay away from everybody. And now phase 2, when it comes to athletics, is, okay, let's get them back on campus. And then once they get them here, this is what we're doing to keep them safe and to kind of test the waters and see what we're going to come up with. And then phase 3 will be, okay, let's do that a little bit more. And then phase 4, all right, let's do that a little bit more. And then probably phase 5 or phase 6 will be, all right, we're going to give it all a shot here. And let's see what happens. And but we continue to learn more with every change that is made. And in about 3 weeks, we're going to have a lot more than what we have now. And that's because you will have had college athletes at that point in time back on campus for a week or two, and you'll start to. I mean, you're going to know this isn't the college football, or lack thereof, the college football injury list. Because we all know that coaches will go, he's fine, he'll play Saturday. And then you get to Saturday, he had a broken leg. And why'd you say he was going to play on Tuesday?
He's on a cast.
And Will Muschamp's the worst about that. I mean, with all the respect I have for Coach Muschamp, he's fine. We expect to see him on Saturday. Like, there's little phrases that he uses in his Tuesday pressers where you really grow very cautious about the future of certain players when you hear, we expect him to play, or he should be fine, things like that. And then you get to Saturday and you're like, oh, he's actually got a torn hamstring. He's not playing.
He won't be for the next couple of weeks.
Right. This is not that. You have to report this. You have to be public about this. And then when they have to report that, because the safety of others is tied into this virus.
Mm-hmm.
If you pull a hamstring, that doesn't mean the guy next to you is going to do it just because he touched you. So we're going to know. Like, we're going to have the statistics within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then 2 to 3 weeks after that, we're going to have even more. And that's why I asked him that question of how long do you think this will last? Has anybody said, look, we're expecting to kind of look at this for 3 weeks, and then in 3 weeks we'll kind of do it again? I don't think they know. I think they have the plan of, okay, this is going to be the next step, but they don't know when they're going to implement that next step.
There's no question, because they don't know. We can't predict it. We can have all the models we want, run prediction models, but we have no idea what's actually going to happen. So this goes back to what we've talked about for 60 days. We need all the ideas on the table, and we need to be able to enact an idea when it comes time to make that call. Mm-hmm. So be ready for various scenarios, and when we say go, whichever scenario we're choosing to go with.
Right.
And that has to be the way that not just college sports, pretty much all of us have to be operating under that same assumption that, look, anything can still happen. Let's be prepared the best we can to adjust on, seconds notice.
No doubt. 843-321-8893 is our phone number here on the JB and Goldwater Show. 843-321-8893. If you'll put that in your phones, you can give us a call whenever you'd like to. We'll get to a note from the NFL here in just a moment. Then Gene Sapikoff set to join us in the next 10 to 15 minutes. But last week we took a week off from this. This was my fault. So we're going to get back into this. And I just wasn't putting this on our daily note sheets, and that's just wrong of me. Today is May the 26th. It is our National Day Calendar segment, okay?
Okay.
All right. Today, there's only 2 national days on May 26th, as opposed to some others where there's like 4 or 5.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay.
Thank God I didn't tell my wife what yesterday was. Yesterday was National Wine Day, in addition to Memorial Day.
Every day is National Wine Day.
Usually at my house.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Every day.
Today is National Paper Airplane Day.
Can you make one?
No.
No.
I used to be able to when I was a kid. I can't remember how to do it.
I mean, I can put it together, but they don't fly.
Yeah, I don't remember how to do it. I'll have to pull up a YouTube video of how to do that. Now that we have this video,
we can just start shooting paper airplanes.
Flying back and forth. But this one I'm all on board for. This is my favorite dessert alongside banana pudding. And with this in it, I'm totally in. National Blueberry Cheesecake Day.
That's your favorite dessert?
Cheesecake.
Okay, cheesecake's good.
Yeah, cheesecake and banana pudding are my favorite desserts. They just coincide.
With blueberry cheesecake?
No. I'm saying I love blueberries.
Yeah.
So I would absolutely love blueberry cheesecake. I don't know if I've had it. I think I have. But I feel like if I had, I would remember exactly where I was when I had that.
Cheesecake, generally speaking, is very good.
Yeah.
And any type of fruit, like fake sugar thing they put on it, it tastes good.
So National Blueberry Cheesecake Day. Now, I don't know if that means blueberries in the cheesecake or, like you said, dripping over the cheesecake.
Mm-hmm. Or both. You put the little dripping over it and then some blueberries on top or some strawberries on top or something. Mm-hmm. Make it healthy.
Yeah. I'm all in for that.
Yep.
So happy National Paper Airplane Day for all you paper airplaners out there.
Paper airplaners.
All of those with a sweet tooth, happy National Blueberry Cheesecake Day.
Very good.
And I can already tell you this. Today's Tuesday?
It is, yes.
Thursday? Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Thursday's a good national day.
Oh, boy. Oh, there's 3 of them.
Okay.
And they're all amazing.
Okay.
And I'm trying to figure out why all 3 of those are on the same day. But they're all amazing.
Because they're just going to make Thursday special.
Oh, yeah. And my wife leaves Thursday to go to the mountains, so I will be
needing whatever the day is.
It's their foods, all of them. Don't look. Don't look it up. Let me tell you what it is on Thursday.
I don't, yeah.
And we'll tell you early enough to where you can go to the store and get this stuff and get ready to roll for supper that night.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, your wife's heading out this weekend. My wife is too. So we're both daddy daycaring it this weekend.
It's every day. All right, quickly to the NFL here. So Troy Vincent, who is the NFL's executive vice president, was very outspoken on the implementation of a certain rule last year, which was the pass interference replay reviews. And he said, quote, they failed miserably. Wow. It's interesting. Vincent's comments came during a broader discussion of the Sky Judge proposal, which is the addition of a booth umpire to each officiating crew, which is basically a modified version of which is set to be voted on during Thursday's NFL owners video. It'll be a video conference meeting this week. Basically putting another official up there to say, hey, whoa, we got to look at this. But here's what he said, tying these two together, this coming vote and last year's implementation of the pass interference replay rule. Quote, we cannot fail this year. It's implying they failed last year. We saw a year ago when it played out, starting with myself, what we put in place last year, those outcomes were not good for professional football because we didn't do the proper due diligence. It played out publicly. The last thing people should be talking about is the way the game's officiated. They, the officials, should be faceless objects managing and facilitating game flow. And he is spot on with those last two sentences.
Dead on. And the officials will tell you the same thing. They don't want to be the story.
No, they don't.
All.
They don't. And like what, we all complained about that, Darren. And what everybody would say is the officiating was horrible this weekend. The officials were horrible this weekend. But generally that was followed up by, that's a terrible rule. That needs to be changed, whatever it is, instead of leading it off with, that's a terrible rule. It's impossible for these officials to be consistent with a rule like this. So, these guys become the face of the ball game. Unlike the past where guys like Ed Hockley might be the face of the game, but that's just because Ed Hockley looked like a wrestler. But these guys were royally screwing this up. And this all stemmed from the Saints situation down in New Orleans.
Yep.
And it's okay. Again, like, you don't want those things to happen. But sometimes, like, when people say it's part of the game, unfortunately, it's part of the game. Like, you will never be perfect on everything. People are going to get screwed in sports.
I generally take the stance.
Sorry.
It takes a royal screw up to alter my thinking on this. But I generally take the stance of, look, refs are not going to cost you a game, even if it's a horrendous call at the end of the game. I mean, the ref didn't cost you the game because you've had the entire game, and if you're leaving it up to one play at the last second, if they happen to miss a call that maybe could go either way, they didn't cost you the game. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, and I've gotten into tons of arguments about that because part of the game, as you just said, is the human element, is the officiating. It is part of the game.
Right.
If a call doesn't go your way, it happens. It does. They're not going to be even if we go computer and all electronic, you think they're not going to have bugs? You think they're not going to make some wrong calls every now and then? Of course it'll happen. Yeah,
I mean, especially in a sport where, Darren, it's the majority of everything you said there has a human element to it.
Yeah.
And the game moves so fast in football, and there's so many people on the field. There's 22 players, and you're doing your best you can to monitor everything that's happening. But we've been watching this sport a long time. And you can go to any level of this, and I'll say for years, holding has been on almost every play, especially like in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Carolina fan. It has happened for us. It has happened against us, and I've watched it over and over and over. And yes, it is so frustrating, but you can't throw a flag every play.
No,
you can't. And pass interference. Last year there were 81 pass interference related plays that coaches challenged, which really, if you think about it, is not a lot because you have 32 teams and they all play a 16-game schedule. It's not a ton. Only 13 of those were overturned, but there were booth reviews. 11 of those 20 booth reviews were overturned.
I thought the number was lower in terms of the number that were actually overturned because that was the storyline. Like, okay, we have this rule where you can challenge pass interference, but the refs weren't willing, as the season went along, to reverse their opinion on pass. Whatever the call was, they they upheld it, I guess, except for 13 instances.
Yeah, I mean, and you also, if like early on in the year, if you remember early in the season last year in the NFL, and I know we got to go here to get to Gene in a second, but if you remember early in the year, quite a few of these were just screwed up. They just weren't good calls. We're watching this going, whoa, that should easily be overturned, or why was that one overturned? And maybe that kind of set the tone early on where coaches were like, you know what, I'm not going to screw with it. Forget it. I'm not going to waste a timeout and where I'm throwing a flag out there knowing what I'm seeing and what they're seeing. We probably still aren't going to be on the same page. So maybe they just said, forget it. I'm not going to do it. We're going to say, hold on to our time. Maybe that's why it kind of shied them away from wanting to be as interactive with the flag on that type of play. But and by the way, that rule was a 1-year experimental rule. Last month, I'm not sure if anybody caught this, the NFL, their competition committee declined to endorse its renewal.
I think
it's not coming back.
That was a no-brainer. We all knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Because, again, they weren't overturning it.
Right.
It was a hassle. It became something that was lengthening games because coaches were trying, knowing that it was going to fail, trying anyway, waiting for the review, and then it fails.
The sky judge might be an option. They might in the future, Darren, decide to add some more sideline judges or back judges. By the way, yes, that's exactly what they're called. Not everybody is a referee, just so everybody knows. But sideline judges or back judges, they might be willing to implement more of those guys in and out of plays as there are wide receivers. So, like if you look and go 5 wide and you only have 2 back judges out there, you run the other 3 onto the field, and this is your guy, your guy, your guy, and your guy. I don't know if they can do that or not. Or they might just go to this sky judge thing and say, look, we're gonna try to catch it both ways. If we don't catch it, we don't catch it. But we're gonna try to.
I'm cool with that, and I want to say it was the XFL, not the AF, but I believe it was the XFL, or maybe even both, that had the replay judge mic'd. So you could go in the booth with them and hear what their logic was as they're watching, and whether they upheld it or overturned the call. I think that goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning with the golf and how the players were mic'd up and getting a little bit more inside of the person and exactly what's going on. Those are things that can easily be implemented and not be gimmicky.
Yeah.
Right? Like it won't be associated with the gimmicks of the XFL or
Right.
other failed leagues because it will work because fans crave that. I want to know why you made that call. What in your eyes told you that call was right or that call was wrong and why? And as you're thinking about it and processing it in your head, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. The SEC did a decent job last year of during the week they would talk about a couple of plays that happened and things like that and why calls were made, but it wasn't great. I remember media days in 2019. They said, "Oh, we're gonna have this Twitter page, and every week we're gonna announce all the." And they didn't necessarily do that. They only announced the ones they wanted to. But I know they didn't do any from that Florida game last year, and there were some major screw ups in Williams-Brice Stadium that didn't make South Carolina lose the game, but certainly contributed to a major momentum shift from the sideline of the guys in Garnet and Black to the other side. All right, we're going to break. Real quick news. This is breaking from Dennis Dodd in a joint statement. FBS conferences and networks announced that the June 1 deadline to announce start times of games in the first 3 weeks. Generally, coming up here in the next week or two, we get start times for the first 3 weeks of the college football season for all of our teams. That will be delayed. Now, that does not and should not be interpreted as a delay for the season. It is just being delayed by the networks right now.
Fair enough.
So fair enough. Gene is coming up, and we'll throw that at him as well and allow us to maybe give us his interpretation. So hang tight. Final segment of our Tuesday afternoon program with Gene Sapagoff coming up next.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks. Not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
We've been telling you guys about Stokes Volkswagen and the best car offer of all time, but you only have a couple more days to actually cash in on that offer. Here's Ryan Nelson with more.
That's correct. It is an unprecedented offer that Volkswagen has decided it will be good only until June 1st. So we need you to get into Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate. It's 120 days until your first payment, 0% APR for 72 months for new 2019 and 2020 Volkswagens. Check them out online, stokesvw.com.
Honey Baked Ham in Somerville and in Mount Pleasant is your home for catering and lunch. Honey Baked Somerville, owned by former Gamecock right-hander Mike Cisco, is just off the interstate and they are ready to cater to your next business or family meal. Plus, drop in for an incredible sandwiches daily for lunch. The Mount Pleasant location is at the foot of the Ravenel Bridge and always ready to serve and cater to your next meals as well. Plus, delivery is available. Honeybake.com to find your menu today.
As businesses start to open up around South Carolina, we have Ryan Nelson back in here to tell us about Dog and Duck Family Pubs, the 3 locations, and some new hours going on. What's up?
That's right. We now offer indoor dining and patio seating outside. The new hours are Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. now. Slowly getting back into the normal routine, or so what we think, and we hope everybody comes out and supports local businesses like Dog and Duck.
And you still have family special meals as well?
That's right. Always the family style meals, and you can always get curbside pickup or carry out. If you're not ready to venture outside yet, we're here for you.
What's up, guys? It's JB. Obviously, things have been kind of crazy with the coronavirus taking over our lives. We're stuck inside with family, finding ways to be creative and probably tapping the liquor cabinet a little bit. If you don't have Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam in yours, put on your mask and gloves and head to Bottles or Burris Liquor Stores here in Charleston. The Blackberry is my personal favorite on the rocks, but the original Whiskey Jam is Patrick's. So either way, you're winning with Whiskey Jam. WhiskeyJam.com, PatrickDavis.com.
Drinks gonna cloud my memory. The Habbo radio station everyone loves.
I love them a lot. JB and Darren.
I love you, man. I love you too, bud. I love you, dude. I love you, bro Montana. I love you, Holmes. I love you, Broseph Goebbels. I love you, Machacha. I love you, Tico Brohe.
Okay. Let's continue here.
On the JB and Goldwater Show.
All right, 136. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, live on the Podbean app, now live on YouTube and on Facebook Live. Those who've checked in today to actually see what we do around here, we appreciate that. On Twitter at JB_Goldwater, JB and Goldwater, Facebook and Instagram. Back to the phone lines we go. We'll spend about 15 minutes or so with our friend Gene Sapikoff. He's part 2 of our Post and Courier Day here on our program as David Cloninger joined us in hour number 1. Hey, Gene.
Well, I'm happy to be the closer for David Cloninger. If he couldn't get through the whole game, he had to tap out, and here I come out of the bullpen.
DC, generally he can only get you into about the 7th inning. Don't tell him I said
that. But what an ERA.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's special. He's Maddox-like, there's no doubt, but you're more like John Rocker.
That's not a compliment.
No, John Rocker was good.
For a little.
He was just, a little batty. Gene's not. Gene, before we move on, Dennis Dodd tweeted a moment ago that in a joint statement, the FBS leagues and networks announced that the June 1 deadline to announce start times of football games in the first 3 weeks, that's going to be delayed, but he also added this should not necessarily be interpreted as a delay in the season. How do you interpret that?
Yeah, I got those emails from the conferences too. Well, I think that it's just the price of doing business. Why make a commitment now if you don't have to? And yeah, I mean, even under the best of circumstances, the season could be delayed a week or 2 or 3. And I think if that were to occur, just about all the stakeholders would be delighted with that. So not a real big deal.
Yeah, probably just a way to this is probably just a let's create less work in the future instead of more work in the future, right?
Exactly, just in case they have to go back and do some revisions to the schedule.
Clemson also has announced the same or very similar measures to what we've heard in South Carolina, and of course the SEC, that basketball, both men and women, football, they are eligible to begin, quote, we always love this term, voluntary workouts on June the 8th. But they also said June 1, they'll welcome student athletes back, and you have to essentially quarantine for socially distanced for 7 days and go through the testing procedures and things of this nature. I say that to say this. Just a couple of days ago, the Michigan president says, hey, look, if students aren't on campus, we ain't playing football up here in Ann Arbor. But it seems like others are a little bit more optimistic about this. So why would the president go out on a limb and say something like that?
Well, first of all, there's nothing so snidely to me as being the contrarian when the flow is going to be sweet and in your favor. But you get to say, hey, I was saying that maybe we should be careful with that, when actually, it's inevitable that schools are going to open, or at least try to, and that sports will be back. But that president at Michigan gets to say, contrary to what everybody else is saying, including his own coaches, that, I want to register my concern here. I think it's kind of ridiculous. So no big deal there whatsoever, though that guy is trained as an immunologist.
Yeah, that's kind of the side part right there. Gene Sapkoff, Post and Courier, with us now. And
that's a nice little finishing nugget.
Some of the other school presidents are as well. I think either Arizona's or Arizona State's, I believe. But anyway, I want to go over to golf. Did you watch the match? I was going to say yesterday, but Sunday?
I was in and out with it, and I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought the plus was the taped interaction and the great tweets coming in from all over the place, including Eli Manning when it was just coming down in buckets, saying, I don't think hard stuff's going to come for a while. I'd keep playing. That was my favorite. And Barkley kind of needling people. But, I knew it was going to get good ratings, just like the Darlington race did a week before that, the Sunday before. But on the other hand, it was sad to watch golf without fans because it's just not the same with that roar.
But, and here's where I'm going with this. The way that the players, being the four of them, were mic'd up, the interactions that they could have with Brian Anderson, with Barkley, with Justin Thomas, with Amanda Balionis, who was on the course with them. If we're not going to have fans, if we're going to have smaller numbers of fans and the ambiance won't be the same, I think that the access to players, and we saw this in the baseball all-star game last year, is a great way to bridge that gap. Can it happen, though, when there's a little bit more on the line that, like actual standings and actual competition? Can something like this happen?
I think it can. And Darren, the NASCAR Fox people had the Darlington drivers, a few of them mic'd up during the competition, which I thought was pretty weird. I mean, this guy's, going around the track at 170 or whatever they go around, and he's talking to Jeff Gordon about strategy. So I think that is something that could be happening. And, maybe it could start with coaches. Maybe it could start with, quarterbacks when they're on the sideline, while the defense is out there, few designated players. I would like to see that. Ever since I was a kid, I thought, miking up of athletes and on the NFL films, hearing it back was really cool. And I think that is something that could come out of, these kinds of exhibitions, at least with the golf, that maybe that happens in not just golf, but other sports, as you said.
Yeah, Gene, I thought the most interesting part of Sunday, and I made this comment to Darren earlier, was that you had four of the most polarizing figures in sports. Obviously, two of the greatest quarterbacks that have ever lived. One of them is still playing. And then you have two of the greatest golfers we've ever seen, certainly polarizing in the name of Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, such a popular player and things like that. But I thought that what was so great about it, I didn't even care who won. It made me feel like we're all human. Sometimes you look at these athletes and you think that they're so much different than everybody else, but you saw Brady, whose game reminded me a lot of mine, especially early in the round on Sunday afternoon, and the way that they kind of jab back and forth with each other and driving their own golf carts and picking out their own clubs. And, you felt like you were almost on the course, like, hey, yeah, that's exactly what my buddies and I do. I think that was maybe the best part of the whole day.
Well, I agree. And Jamie, like the last time you split your pants, I mean, when Brady split his, it reminded me of that. But here's what I'd like to see. It's kind of a series here where we have, celebrities playing in foursomes.
Oh, cool.
Could you imagine if we could get Michael Jordan and Bill Murray into this? That would be great.
Oh, you're exactly right. And that's Darren and I mentioned that earlier. If you would have done this weekend with other big names, but not those names, but just other big names, let's say, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers, Ricky Fowler, and Rory McIlroy, and I don't know, throw another quarterback in there, whoever you want to. I don't know whoever you want.
Dwayne Haskins.
No, he's not. Someone bigger than that. But I think you would have had
Steven
plenty.
Garcia, maybe.
There you go.
Like that.
Steven Garcia with
How about Drew Brees?
Drew Brees. You would have certainly had a draw. There's no doubt. But I don't think you would have had the draw that you had with these guys. They nailed, because they nailed the golfers. Like, they got the right guys out there, people that we want to know more about.
They did. I'll tell you. I think you could have people, as long as they could be somewhat athletic and have played some golf. They don't have to be even as good of golfers as Manning and Brady, to pair with two professionals. And I think it would be fun, and it could be co-ed also. The model I use for this, I don't know if you guys have ever watched the show Running Wild with Bear Grylls.
Oh, yeah.
Where he takes celebrities, like Kate Hudson, and, Drew Brees was on there, Deion Sanders, and Ben Stiller out for these 48-hour hikes in the woods and overnights and stuff, and it's absolutely fascinating.
If you could put together, not these four guys, but another foursome, you mentioned Jordan and Bill Murray,
those would be my two favorites to start with, for sure.
Who else? I mean, even what about a guy like Spurrier? Spurrier is such a polarizing
figure. He would be
figure.
Tremendous, because he would be just cutting up and cracking jokes and wanting to bet on every little thing, and also putting pressure on people. I think it would be a blast.
I loved the very beginning of the match. It was Justin Thomas who was on the range, and the first time they checked in with him, he said how enjoyable it was because he's watching Brady and Manning, and he's like, look, you can tell how nervous they are. So you can tell how nervous these professional athletes who are used to playing the biggest games on the biggest stage in front of the largest audience.
And Super Bowl, millions of people.
Yeah, and they're out there actually nervous. I mean, to get that insight was fun. I mean, it humanized these inhuman-type figures.
I think I would go like themes with actresses, Kate Hudson and Jennifer Lawrence, and I would go, football coaches, Dabo and Nick Saban, and things like that. Basketball, LeBron, and Kevin Garnett or something. That's what I would go with.
Adam Wainwright put on Twitter that he was going to challenge Justin Verlander, who then accepted. He said, I don't remember the number. I want to say it's $100,000. He said, I'll challenge Verlander if you come to my home course, whichever one that is, and just pick a charity. So Wainwright threw out the charity that he would donate the money to, and Verlander picked a charity that he will donate the money to in the event that they lose. So maybe this thing can catch some steam.
Well, golf is winning, aren't they?
Yes.
Well, and to further expand and localize it, I would like to see the JB and Goldwater show get involved in this somehow with you two guys and two pros or something like that. Yeah. That would be great.
Stay tuned on that. I don't know. We might ESPN might be able to implement this model to kick off football every year or something. Have an event just like this, where the coaches go out. I mean, I know the SEC and the ACC, they have their golf outings, but they may have been missing out on a bunch of revenue in the past by not having them televised and mic'd up, where you could have at that point in time had Steve Spurrier and Phil Fulmer out there throwing jabs at each other on a golf course, or now Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart and Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin getting into it. Mike Leach, what would he say? Stuff like that. I mean, there's a real market for this. Somebody way smarter than me, maybe along the lines of guys like Eugene, might be able to pitch this to a major network. It might be 3 or 4 letters long.
Well, yeah, and like you just alluded to, the SEC and ACC are halfway there because they have that Chick-fil-A event in the summer. I don't know if it's still on for this year, where a head coach from each team in the SEC and ACC plays with a former player. It's been, for a long time it was Steve Spurrier, and Sterling Sharp was, one of the best teams. So, I mean, that's just a really cool thing.
Let me switch over to baseball because the owners are expected to meet today. Maybe they already have, and come up with some next level of the proposal that they're going to give to the players. With this back and forth that we're seeing here, do you think we're going to see baseball?
Yeah, I think there's going to be some kind of baseball season. I think they have more wiggle room than the NBA or NHL does, and just because of the obvious schedule situation and timing of the season, they don't have to play anywhere close to 162 games. So I think they will figure out a way to get it done, and I think it's very important that they do in some way. And the silly part of me would love to see the whole season be played at Disney World right along with the NBA season, and somehow the whole state of Florida probably just separate from the U.S. and start floating away in the Caribbean or something.
Is that the end goal? That's what you want to see? So that put the leagues in there and just go float away.
Yeah. Well, how about if you could? I don't know how the fan thing would go, but if you could just go down to Orlando and see 4 NBA games and 4 MLB games without, walking 100 yards.
I mean, is there a real possibility that you could have half of Major League Baseball playing in Arizona and the other half just playing in Florida?
I guess that's one of those proposals, Jamie, that they thought about, but I think the more logical one is in the one in which they regionalize the schedules, as we've talked about before, where AL East and NL East sort of combine. The Braves are playing the Rays a lot, and maybe the Texas teams or something. I don't know. That seems to me a little bit more logical.
Well, I mean, isn't it kind of fascinating that only less than a couple of weeks ago it was, California, we're shut down for 3 more months, and don't come to New York, and then all of a sudden, just days later, it's, oh, well, pro sports can come back to California and New York and play. Did these governors just sit down and go, we're about to miss out on a crap ton of revenue. We might want to get these guys going in our state so they don't go elsewhere?
A combination of that, and I think they're seeing the hospitalization numbers being somewhat reasonable, is the way I would put it. But, yeah, I think there's just a lot at stake business-wise, and if this isn't necessarily all about safety, but if you're the governor of a state and your state's going to miss out on a lot of revenue and you want to get reelected, you kind of know what to do.
Gene, Darren and I had a very interesting conversation about this last week. I want to get your take on this. How do you compare where we are in the sports world during this pandemic as we try to come out of this and find a new normal to what we went through almost 20 years ago post 9/11? If you remember, we're all craving Major League Baseball to come back. We wanted to get to the playoffs, and obviously college football, the first game that was televised, that in Starkville between South Carolina and Mississippi State. And Gamecocks went over and won that game, actually. Do you have comparisons of these two events that are basically 20 years apart?
The anxiety and intensity is really similar. I remember those first few football weekends after 9/11, and it was almost kind of scary for people to be in a big stadium. I mean, I literally saw people looking up, looking around. In fact, Clemson played in a game at Georgia Tech, either that next week or the first weekend back, and there's a lot of tall buildings in which you can look down and see into Bobby Dodd Field, Bobby Dodd Stadium there, and people were a little nervous. But this thing is much more drawn out, and we're not maybe even halfway through it. So that's the difference, is that it's just a lot more of a marathon than what I hate to say was kind of a sprint after 9/11. And of course, looking back in retrospect, nothing major terrible happened. It's easy to say that now, but that's what it looks like.
It's also scary too that, I mean, you can't see. Like you pointed out. I mean, I remember I was in college. I remember that first Penn State game after 9/11, looking around and looking at this massive stadium and looking all around the upper edges of it. But I was looking for something I could see if it was there.
Right.
You can't see this.
really good point. And the other thing, that this is different than anything in the history of the world, at least since 1918 or 1920, and the Spanish flu pandemic, is that the whole world is involved in this. And that's just hard to say. I mean, the whole world did not have the same concerns in 9/11. The whole world did not have the same concerns in World War II. There were vast parts of the world that, believe it or not, weren't really all that involved in World War II. And this is ridiculous. That literally every country, every city in the world has a stake in what's going on in this.
All right, Gene, final question. We'll let you run off to the rain on this Tuesday afternoon. But what we see today in ballparks that you can actually, if you think about it, equate those changes to post 9/11, plastic bags, metal detectors. When you go to airports, obviously flying has forever changed things. It's a new normal. So, and I don't know that we know yet what our new normals will be when it comes to sporting events based on this pandemic. But to this point, what have you learned that you think, hey, look, these are things that probably will forever be like this because of what we're going through with COVID-19?
That's hard to say. I mean, because you're looking now, and I walked into our building at work today and got my temperature checked. And they do it. They just stick this thing on your forehead, and it's immediately checked. It's not a long thermometer under the tongue thing. I don't know if they're going to be doing that in stadiums, if they're going to demand masks, who's going to enforce who's wearing masks, and if they're going to have people sitting apart or what. So what we see during the 2020 summer and fall could be a lot different than what we see a year or two from now. I'm not really sure how that's going to look, but there's going to be so many changes, both good and not so good, probably, that come out of this. But overall, I'm an optimist, and I think there's all kinds of things in all kinds of businesses that people have learned how to do here that will benefit life in the long run.
Like starting a sports radio show when there aren't any sports.
and that's a serious example. And I mean, that's a great thing. I mean, things like that, podcasts and et cetera. Yes, you're right.
You wonder if those metal detectors you walk through in ballparks one day will also be able to gauge the temperature.
Guarantee they're working on it.
Oh, somebody's working on that. Somebody's about to be a billionaire off of that. Absolutely. There's no doubt. Maybe it's Gene. Maybe Gene's getting out of the sports radio business before long. Who knows? What's in the paper this week, man?
Okay, yeah, we've got all kinds of things. Josh Needleman at Clemson, David Cloninger at South Carolina, beat writer supreme will be ready to put forth all kinds of information at postandcourier.com. And I'm going to have a column Sunday kind of really evaluating what the role of the college football player is right now, and just think what's leaning on the college football player right now. The college athletic department budget, the college budget overall, businesses around college football, television revenue, other media revenue, all on the college football player. That's a lot on an unpaid student athlete, and I'm kind of diving into that.
Well, I'm glad you are. I am, and not just because of the point you made there at the end about these student athletes being unpaid, but because I think it's important for people to understand that there are economies all over this country that are directly tied to the success of college football in those towns. And we have them in our state. We have them in the Southeast. They're in the Northwest. They're all over the place, from Auburn, Alabama to North Dakota. These places when restaurants aren't opening and they're not selling stuff and things like that, and football isn't being played, and that money doesn't trickle down, places close. And so I can't wait for Sunday to read that, Gene. I'm glad you're doing that, and we certainly look forward to that. Maybe next week you'll come back on and discuss with us, man.
Sounds good, guys.
Thanks, Gene. Have a great week.
You too.
There you go. On Twitter at Sapikoff, one of the best out there in the sports business. Gene Sapikoff.
The other good thing about that is we have not heard much from the athletes, the college athletes who will be, well, forced is the wrong word, but forced, if you're a part of these teams, to put yourself out there and assume risk, because they're not pros. They're not getting paid, but they are going to be forced to go out there and put themselves at risk as college sports gets back going. And we haven't heard much from the college athlete.
Not yet. Probably soon, but not yet, no doubt. All right, pretty much in the books here on this on Tuesday, which is day one of the week. Keep wanting to say Monday, but we were off yesterday.
I thought yesterday was Sunday all day. Wasn't.
No. 4-day work week for us. Back to the weekend. Thanks to Gene and David Cloninger posting Courier Day on our program. Those who've tuned in on YouTube, we appreciate that. And Facebook Live.
That's right.
Certainly appreciate that as well.
Going to work on getting our Periscope up and running, so we'll be up on Twitter as well. That shouldn't be that challenging. No major glitches today.
Good.
That I know of yet.
There's always tomorrow.
There's always tomorrow, but hey.
JC Sherbert with us tomorrow.
Yes.
Always a fun conversation with JC Sherbert, the owner of the Big Spur, as part of the 247 Sports Network. Thanks for your work, Darren, as always. For Darren Goldwater, I'm Jamie Bradford. Have a wonderful Tuesday. We'll see you tomorrow at noon here on the JB and Goldwater Show.